All right, so this wine is Gabbiano Chianti Classico 2017. The label is Cavaliere de Oro, means the golden knight. So Gabbiano apparently was established in the 1400s in Tuscany, which is insane, and which is part of the reason why I love old world wines, because they come packed with so much history that's nuts. So in the 1400s, so during the Middle Ages, where the castle was built here, where this property is, supposedly the legend goes that there was a golden knight that would protect the property, would protect the castello. And so they made this label, the Cavaliere de Oro, in kind of honoring the memory of that golden knight, which I think is pretty cool. So again, Chianti Classico, this is going to be Sangiovese dominant. Again, remember, thin-skinned grape. We can expect this to hopefully be on par in body with some of these other lighter varietals that we have going on. So let's pour a little bit here. I'm excited for this one. Love my Italian wine. Looks a little darker. Yeah, the nose is way different also. So you get this very kind of stewed red fruit component. So remember, we're thinking more developed, more concentrated red fruit. Not from concentrate, but just more concentration in the fruit. There is a kind of leafiness, which I like about this, and can be very typical for wines of Chianti. So you have this, you think about, like, a lot of times if you're picking grapes and, you know, some of those grapes are on the stems and you throw them into like these big buckets and you take them to the winery and then you crush and ferment them all together. There's going to be a stemminess involved. That's what I mean if I say stemminess, or kind of a twiggy note to the wine, because it makes me remember, makes me think about as if some of those grapes were still on some of the stems that they're coming off of, versus actually picking those grapes off and maybe using some type of technology to make sure that you're only getting grapes in there, right? It's just something to consider. But I'm getting that on the nose. There's this, apart from the very stewed red fruit that's coming through, I'm getting like a twigginess, a stemminess. There's an earthiness, like a fresh potting soil that's coming through in this wine. A little leather here, a little clay-like minerality as well. Super interesting on the nose. Also smells kind of like tomato paste or stewed tomatoes. Super interesting. All right, let's give it a whirl. Whoops, that was a close one. All right. So as I expected, you know, a lot of stewed fruit on the nose, but on the palate, it finishes much drier and more tart fruit flavors. So again, very typical for Chianti. You have this drier cherry, dry, tart red fruit component that finishes on the wine. But you do have these beautiful baking spices and dried kind of leather and pepper notes that come through on the back end of the wine that I like a lot. It is very light body too. I mean, this is, let's see what the alcohol is on this. 13.5% alcohol. Yeah, this is definitely on the lighter side of medium, right? Like kind of medium minus in body. Very comparable in body to these first two wines, which is why we categorize them together as thin-skinned grapes. But again, in comparison to these, there's definitely a lot more spice notes coming through. There's a bit more of this kind of tobacco tar, fresh potting soil that comes through, even though those are a little bit lighter. They're not as dominant as the fruit. But there's a lot of balance between those fruity notes and the spicy notes in this wine. I gotta say, I'm just a big sucker for Chianti. This is a great everyday drinking wine because I think that it delivers a little bit more than just straight up fruit notes in your glass. This wine, let's see what the price point is, $13.32. So pretty banging wine, I think, for the price. I would totally buy that again. It is a little bit drier than the first two, and it does have a lot of acidity, right? I think a lot of times what happens in Chianti Classico is that you have kind of drier tannins, and it is very much driven by acidity. But not coming across as an acidic wine or an out of balance acidic wine at all. And if you do have wines like this that have a little bit more tannin and acidity, it makes them great food wines, right? So this would probably go great with the little pork chop tacos I'm about to fire off here, or anything that you have on deck that's a kind of a lighter dish, right? I think this will go very well with that. This wine I would buy again. It's not, you know, a showstopper, but it is, I think, kind of hitting the mark for what a classic Chianti should be. Definitely showing some typicity with that drier fruit, subtle earthy tones, higher acidity, higher minerality, all packed into kind of a lighter, sleek, elegant body. I'm all about that wine. I'm going to give it an 88 out of 100 for the Gabbiano Chianti Classico.